Have you ever wondered if there are things that you can do to strengthen your spine with osteoporosis? Or what about even after you've had a compression or wedge fracture? Today, we're going to talk about how strength training works to improve bone health. We're also going to go over how this works if you've already had one or more compression fractures in your spine. I'm Sarah, and I am so glad that you are here to join me on a journey to better bone health. I'm a 500-hour trained yoga teacher with additional training specific to osteoporosis and yoga, and I'm also BoneFit certified. I'm also a certified nutritional health coach. If you'd like more information about the programs that I offer to help improve bone health for the long term, then check out the link in the description. Let's get into it. So many of you may already know that we reach peak bone mass at about age 30. But what does this actually mean? It means that our bodies are focused on building strong bones with gusto up to about age 30. And after that, it tends to slow down production of new bone cells. You know how our bodies are made up of cells and that we make new cells all the time and get rid of the old ones when they get worn out? The same process is happening in our bone cells. We make new bone cells and we get rid of the old bone cells all the time. The thing is, after age 30, our bodies tend to sweep away more bone than it makes. After menopause with hormonal changes, there's a significant drop off in estrogen, which causes a significant drop off in our bone density. Here's the thing though, we can get our bodies to produce more bone cells through weight-bearing exercise. Have you ever seen one of those signs at the dentist's office that says, if you ignore your teeth, they'll go away? The same thing is true with our muscles and our bones. Our teeth are bones after all. If we don't use our muscles, they get weak and then they don't pull particularly hard on our bones. But if we use our muscles, then they pull harder on our bones. This is what's called good stress for our bones. When we use something, it gets stronger. Remember this concept. If you use it, it will get stronger. You're already familiar with this concept in your own body. You have one hand that you write with, yes? You're either right or left-handed. I'm right-handed. The hand that you write with is stronger than your other hand. And the same concept is true for all of our other body parts as well. With regards to bone health, we can use this concept to our advantage. The most common osteoporotic fractures are compression or wedge fractures in the spine. In the United States, there are almost 1 million of this type of fracture each year. The number 2 most common type of fracture are hip and femur fractures. The femur is the big bone in our thighs. Many of these fractures happen at the femoral neck, which is the part of the bone at the top of the thigh that joins into the hip. There are about 300,000 of this type of fracture each year in the US. The third most common osteoporotic fracture are wrist and forearm and rib fractures that happen when people try to protect themselves when they fall. Knowing where fractures are most likely to occur means that we can work strategically to strengthen those areas of the body. So let's talk about what we can do to strengthen our backs, and then let's talk about what to do if you've already had a compression or wedge fracture. So, strengthening our core, glute, and postural muscles helps provide support for our spines. It also helps to prevent future fractures and to reduce pain. With osteoporosis, it's important to avoid exercises that cause your spine to round. This means no sit-ups or abdominal curls. There are other exercises that you can do to build core strength that do not require you to round your spine. For example, while you're sitting in a chair, take your arms out to the sides. As long as your balance is good enough to do this, go ahead and lean over to one side. Do you feel your abdominal muscles start working? If not, lean over a little bit farther to get to that point where you feel your tummy muscles working, but not so far that you feel like you're going to fall. Guess what? You just made your tummy muscles work, but you didn't round your spine. With osteoporosis, it's important to do core work, but to make sure that the core work that we do does not cause our spines to round. In looking specifically at exercise after fracture, first it's important to get the medical okay to begin an exercise program. But after that, it's essential that people who've had compression fractures participate in an exercise program that works on strengthening the extensor muscles. These are the postural muscles that run along the spine. Several medical studies conducted showed that people who participated in exercise programs to strengthen the extensor muscles of the back had much lower refracture rates for compression fractures. Let me go over the difference. For people who've had vertebroplasty after fracture, they were more likely to refracture within 4 to 5 months. If you're wondering what vertebroplasty is, it's a surgery where a doctor injects cement into the spine to create more stability in the spine and hopefully to reduce pain. The people who had vertebroplasty and participated in an exercise program to strengthen their extensor muscles were likely to go almost 2.5 years before they had an incidence of refracture. That's a significant difference. But the people who did not have vertebroplasty and just participated in an exercise program to strengthen their extensor muscles were likely to go about 5 years before they had an incidence of refracture. That is a significant difference. 4 to 5 months, 5 years. In my opinion, everyone who's had a compression fracture should be encouraged to participate in an exercise program to strengthen their extensor muscles. So when you're figuring out how to go about your exercise program, it will depend on how severe your fracture is and whether or not you have pain that's associated with it. It will also depend on what kind of physical shape you were in prior to the fracture happening. If you've already been exercising regularly, then you might approach exercise in a more athletic way. If exercise is a new thing for you, then you'll begin more gradually. Wherever you are is okay. The important thing is to not measure yourself against anyone else, but to recognize your own progress and the difference that you see and feel in yourself as you make this progress. This is one of those things where it is really important to do you. Listen to your body. Go at the pace that's right for you. Our glute muscles support our spines, and we need to use them for our backs to have good support. Take a moment right now and squeeze your bottom. Drive both cheeks together, and then one at a time. You can do this exercise while you're still sitting on them if you want to. Every time you squeeze them, you are working to provide your spine with support. So now you know, do it regularly when you're sitting at a stoplight or waiting anywhere really, even watching TV. Exercises that are important to do as prevention and strengthening after fracture are postural exercises, some gentle stretching and balance work. When you do exercise, it's important to make sure that you can comfortably breathe. Our breath actually helps to create stability when we move. In general, with osteoporosis, we have to do our best to be mindful about our spines. We avoid doing things that cause our spines to round as much as possible. We also need to recognize that we do all round our spines a bit as part of daily movement. In the case of recovering from a compression fracture, we need to be very diligent about our form and make sure that we avoid doing things that we would even normally that would cause our spines to round. This is important for making sure that a compression or wedge fracture does not get worse. So say you have a small compression fracture that's only 20% compressed. If you do things that cause your spine to round, that same fracture that's trying to heal can get worse. It might become a 60 to 70% compressed fracture, maybe more. So do not do any exercise that causes your spine to round if you're recovering from a compression fracture. Don't be intimidated by exercise. It's really important to build strategic strength in the right places. So I've had my own experience with this. About 10 years ago, when I first developed rheumatoid arthritis, my hands and my feet hurt. They still do, by the way, and I ached everywhere. For a time, I gave in to the pain and the fatigue. There were about 3 years where I didn't do any yoga. It just seemed like everything hurt. I lost a lot of strength and my balance was non-existent. And then I started practicing yoga again. I was strategic about what I did and how I did it. My progress was slow. I remember thinking about what I used to be able to do and how I couldn't do those things anymore. But I kept going. Some days I had to drag myself onto my mat because I was not in the mood at any level. Gradually, I built strength and gradually my balance improved. There are some days even now where I question that about the balance and I think to myself, what happened here? Our balance does change from day to day. But then I get back in and I do it again. the next day, the day after that, and my balance is better than it was the day before. For me, my real moment of truth came actually on a trip to Costco. I had gotten so that I took someone else with me because I couldn't pick up the grocery items at Costco. My truth moment came when I realized that I could pick up the stuff at Costco by myself again. My teenage son was standing next to me, waiting to help me, and I just looked at him and I smiled and I smiled. I was so pleased with myself. I had built up enough strength to pick up the stuff at Costco. That for me was a huge win. It was empowering. It provided me freedom. I can go to the grocery store when I want to without waiting for someone else. So now I want to ask you to take a moment and consider where you are and where you would like to be. Are you like me? Have you lost strength that your body would benefit from having? Write down your thoughts about where you are now and where you would like to be. Do it for yourself. There's something about the actual process of writing where things sink in a little bit deeper for us. We think about it a little bit differently than if we didn't write it down. So actually write it. And then consider what you can begin doing to build strength to support your spine. If you would like help doing this, please check out my program in the links. Regardless of whether you choose to work with me or not, you owe it to yourself to take care of your spine. It supports your body and the organs that are inside of your torso. Take a few minutes and figure out how you're going to start working on building strength to support your spine. And if you're comfortable, share where you would like to be in the chat. I would love to hear what you're going to work on. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.